Alright, hey guys, me again, you know who I am, and today I'm here to sadly inform you that Saryn 3.5 isn't that great. She's kind of clunky and annoying now, so you're probably wondering what got changed and what's wrong with her now. And basically spores got reworked again, and this time it says that they fixed the inconsistent spreading ranges and basically made it so that if spores spread at all, it's a base of 16 meters instead of like 8 if you killed somebody or killed somebody with toxic lash or an ally kills them, etc., etc. In all my testing, that doesn't seem to be the case. So we're gonna go ahead and take our old build, our Saryn 3.0 build, which did pretty well, and we're gonna show you what that looks like. Because I found that spreading range it feels way lower than it was. So 235% range. Because spore, pop the spore, only 16 infected. And keep in mind that if I just popped the spore with the old Saryn, that would have been 20. All of them would have been infected immediately. Instead, I'm missing 4. But I could pop more and more, and I'm only 19, so I'm still missing 1. There's 20. So even though it says that like the spreading ranges have been adjusted, they feel to way lower than they should be. Also, the damage on the spores decays. Now this is affected by duration, and I have the lowest duration possible. So my decaying is like the most extreme example you'll ever see. So that's why it's draining so fast. But even then, the decaying is actually kind of fine. In fact, you kind of don't need it at all with this new Saryn. In fact, you don't want your spores doing damage, and I'll get more into that later. Allies also spread spores, but in every single game I've played with spreading spores, I've only seen that happen once, and it was when I was the host. So I don't even really know if that's the whole ally spreading spore thing is a consistent way of spreading spores, because having other people do it for you is a little weird. Also, the damage escalation on spores was changed, so instead of it being 1 damage per spore every second, it now has been changed to being 2 damage per enemy, and it's capped at 10 enemies. So at base, when you hit the cap of 10 enemies, your spore growth will go up by 20 per second, which is a little weird, and you probably won't be hitting as high of a damage as you were before this change, but like I said, that's totally fine. So what also changed is that you can now manually spread spores again, so the detonation mechanic is gone. However, when you manually spread spores, it takes away 20% of your spore damage, though it only costs half of the energy costs to do this, and I think this is a weird thing. However, the thing is, you don't even want spores really doing damage at all. Okay, so here's the problem. So let's say I spread spores to this guy, right, and I'm not shooting his spores or anything, and I do a lot of damage to this guy, but let's say the spore actually robs me of a kill there, which it did. I even had a slash block on the guy, but the spore actually ticked first, which normally spreads spores. However, since the spore got the final hit on that enemy, no spore spread, which is super counterintuitive. It's frustrating, and it's a waste of my goddamn time. It means that often means that you don't want spores killing anything at all, so you don't want to have a whole lot of power strength. And with this build, like, you do kill quite highly. You do shred enemies still with the same build. Problem is that, like, you don't want those spores killing anything. You need to get the kills yourself, though more often than not, the spores will probably last hit something even while you're shooting at it, like I was in that case. And they won't spread, which makes Saryn feel super inconsistent and irritating to play, honestly. And so the way I got around this was, so instead of having 235 range, I decided to go max range, so 280. I put a little bit more duration on, because toxic lash is the only consistent way to spread spores currently, as shooting them didn't seem to get me the range I had previously. And I don't want to have a whole lot of power strength, but I do have some power strength just to get the decent status chance from spores, which is at 46% right now. And this sort of feels like the old Saryn minus the whole damage. And to be honest, escalating damage didn't even need to fucking happen on spores in the first place. Especially now, since spores can rob you of kills and end up not spreading to anything, which is stupid. So you do still want some power strength, you just don't want to have the lowest power strength possible, which will give you like a 13% stat chance. And I do want a little bit of duration, but you still don't need a whole lot of it. Because this amount of duration gives me 16 seconds of toxic glass, which is enough for me, honestly. And you want to have maximum efficiency because you're going to be casting spores and toxic glass more often now, and you want to have maximum range. And this will basically patch up the range inconsistencies I've been having. So this is just better overall, even though it is like less damage. It's far more consistent, and it's the only way I found to make Saryn 3.5 fucking bearable to play. And so now we're going to show you how the new build performs. So basically, I need to cast Toxic Lash to get the spore spread to everyone, right? And they have a decent enough stats chance to where they're going to be stripping armor still at a decent rate. And the armor's low enough, I can just melt them with my flamethrower. Because kills still do spread spores, it's just they can't be by the spores themselves, which is really, like I said, it's really counterintuitive, and it makes Saryn feel bad to play, honestly, because the whole fun of spores was spreading them and spreading them and spreading them, but you kind of have to just do that manually with Toxic Lash. And while Toxic Lash is a nice damage buff, it's not good by itself against armor. And while the decay is there and it is defected by duration, it's still fine. And I'd rather have it be a high decay rather than a low decay, because the thing is, if spores melt like one-tap enemies, like I said, that's going to be a problem. They're not going to be spreading. You're going to have to cast them more and more and more at the higher levels, which just seems wrong. But yeah, that's the only way I've been able to really get around the whole spores don't spread when the spore gets the kill, or they kill still from my, like, getting kill stolen by yourself is a little weird. And if you just want to say fuck spores in general, but you still want to use Saryn, this is the build I'm gonna recommend to you. And then it's basically like a Toxic Lash build. And if you're basically, like, since Toxic Lash is by far Saryn's best ability right now, because it's consistent and it works and it's a great damage buff, this is what you're going to be using if you don't want to even bother with spores. Since it adds % toxin damage on your weapon, it does double that if it's a melee weapon. It makes weapons like, say, the Sarpa or the Castle War shine through against hordes and enemies, because the Sarpa is pretty good, especially with, say, Shattering Impact and Condition Overload. And if we go ahead and just reduce this to 1, right, and just pop our Toxic Lash there, we have quite a bit of duration there, and we just shreds through them. And the damage is even higher if you do the charged attacks. That's only 2 bursts there, 2 charge attacks, and that enemy is dead. It's a nice addition to the Sarpa, which is already pretty good. If you want to have more sweeping melee attacks rather than, say, high damage single target DPS, you probably want to pick up something like the Castle War or build a polearm Zaw, and that built for status. So here's my Castle War. Now, I'm not rocking 100% stat chance, though this weapon can hit it, but I know I'm running Condition Overload, Corrosive Heat, and of course, I can just pop Toxic Lash, which gives me, instead of giving me the 51%, it gives me 102%. So it just shreds through this enemy like it's nothing, because it really is nothing. And in crowds of enemies, it's even better, because hitting multiple enemies means I can get my combo counter up faster. Though this will probably change in the future with the melee rework on the horizon. Good stuff. And you can sort of just spam that, and that works really well too. If you don't want to use spores, but you still want to use Saryn for some reason, then Toxic Lash build is probably your best bet. Because new spores, unless they change it, and I don't think they probably will for a while, it just feels bad. And it's clunky and annoying, and it's not exactly fun to play. Now, you're probably wondering why I didn't put Contagion Cloud in there, and instead of say, Regen Molt here. And I didn't put Contagion Cloud in this build because it just doesn't feel consistent enough. Like, because you have to build, this is affected by range, so you need to build for range. And on top of that, it doesn't proc toxin, it just does toxin damage. So, like, it's not as good as just actually hitting them with Toxic Lash. So, you'd be better off with Regen Molt and something like a duration mod here. Because I only have, like, one form in this, it's the Aura. But you'd be better off with something else in that slot rather than Contagion Cloud. So, in my opinion, it's kind of garbage. But yeah, that's how you play new Saryn now. Saryn is, like, her abilities are still good. They just don't feel good to play. And they're annoying, and so I'm not going to probably use Saryn for a while. Anyway, guys, hope you guys enjoyed. And I'll catch you guys next time. Peace.